is the solidarity we need to see.
You know, you had to absorb a lot of the anger there. How did that feel?
Latest violent attack has spread fear and terror into what is otherwise a very peaceful and cohesive part of North London.
I think this is a national emergency. People need to know that they can't do this and get away with it.
November 2024, the Conservatives were polling 22%. It's now around 17%. What has gone wrong?
We're seeing a fragmentation in our political system.
But does it mean, frankly, that you are an irrelevance? You also rule out propping up a minority-led reform government led by Nigel Farage?
Yes. Why would I then take this new Conservative Party, which I'm building, and merge it with the problems?
Right.
Nigel Farage has been doing my spring cleaning.
What? Are British Jews safe in this country? The stabbing in Golders Green follows 3 arson attacks at London synagogues and a firebombing of 4 ambulances. Israel says, quite simply, anti-Semitism is out of control in the UK. The local MP, Sarah Sackman, felt the force of a community's anger.
I just want to add a few words. What we've heard...
I'll speak to Sarah Sackman later. On the sofa with me today, Jewish Labour peer Luciana Berger, and I'll talk to the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, who's spoken of an epidemic of violence against Jewish people.
This is a national emergency. I cannot say that enough. This is a national emergency. The communities where there are large numbers of Jews need increased police presence.
News of the attack emerged at the end of a boisterous Prime Minister's questions. Badenoch herself was on brutal form.
This government is like a bad episode of Game of Thrones. His own people have turned against him, and all the while, the Prime Minister is holed up in his castle, wetting himself about a visit from the King in the North.
Oof, Andy Burnham will love that. But the Prime Minister had a decent gag too, albeit aimed at the bungee-jumping, stunt-loving Liberal Democrat leader.
I expect frivolous accusations from the Leader of the Opposition. Clearly, I was wrong to expect anything better from the man in the wetsuit.
Enjoy the vibes while you can, Prime Minister, because next week's elections could wipe the smiles off both main party leaders' faces. So, as 1,000 years of history officially comes to an end with the hereditary peers chucked out, plenty of their own MPs want to pension off Starmer and Badenoch too. Going to find my sofa pairing today, and here they are. Ladies, Thangam, Gillian, hello.
Hi.
Thanks so much for coming. It's a big day, isn't it? A lot to discuss. 2 big stories. The Golders Green attack, obviously, very troubling. And we have an interview with the Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, who is our first political leader to be on the sofa. Okay. So I want to get you to comment on that.
Okay. Fantastic. You've had a busy week then, they're all in.
I have, yes, they're all in. They're all coming in. I'll see you on the sofa.
Yes.
Well, the chief rabbi is calling for meaningful action after 2 Jewish people were stabbed in North London. This morning's attack in Golders Green is being treated as terrorism and 1 suspect has been arrested. Here's our communities correspondent, Lisa Holland.
Once again, the Jewish community is reeling after yet another attack on the streets of Britain. This video shows the start of a terrifying few minutes in North London as the attacker, running, is seen lunging towards the man who shouts for help. Then he finds his second victim at a bus stop, the victim's clothing identifying him as a member of the Jewish community. Jewish security volunteers, passers-by and the police detain and pin down the suspect after he'd stabbed the 2 men, one in their 30s and another in their 70s, leaving them with serious injuries. James Marlowe watched events unfold in front of where he lives and filmed as the suspect was taken away by ambulance.
I saw the attacker when I came out of the building, on the ground, face down, being treated by the Jewish paramedics called Hatzalah, and they were treating him for a good 15 or 20 minutes. Police were around, helicopters in the sky, more residents coming out because they could hear a lot of commotion.
What's the reaction from people in the community that there's been another incident?
A lot of people around here have been expecting that. They hope it won't come and they get on with their daily lives, picking up their kids from school, work and everything else and shopping, but they've been expecting it.
So this is the spot where the attacker was apprehended. Right now there are forensics teams who are documenting
the scene and also gathering any kind of evidence. And you can just about make out as well that there are a pair of shoes on the ground which may well belong to the attacker, who we understand was tasered by the police.
This is the latest incident targeting the Jewish community and comes just weeks after 4 ambulances run by Jewish volunteers were set on fire in an arson attack in the same part of North London.
We were so shocked and so saddened, but not surprised. We have been asking, God forbid, where will the next incident be? When will it be? Today we found out the answer, but this cannot continue.
Shame on you! The Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police was heckled at the scene. There's frustration amongst those who believe not enough police protection is provided for them.
Let me be clear, we've seen a rise in racist and anti-Semitic hate crime. And whilst I can't comment on live investigations, we know that some individuals are being encouraged, persuaded or paid to commit acts of violence on behalf of foreign organisations and hostile states. If you act out of hatred, racism or anti-Semitism, we will come after you and you will face the consequences.
An Iran-aligned group said it was responsible for the stabbings, though no evidence has been provided to back that up. It means their unsubstantiated claim could just be opportunistic. People we spoke to after the incident seemed horrified, yet resilient.
What does everybody feel?
That it's not safety anymore to walk on the street.
This is a community which says it is continuously looking over its shoulder, fearful of those who see them as their enemies. Lisa Holland, Sky News, North London.
Well, in the past half hour, we've heard from the Prime Minister on those attacks in Golders Green. Let's have a watch.
Prime Minister, in light of today's attacks, do you have plans to visit Golders Green?
Well, let me start by saying what an appalling attack this is, and my thoughts and all of our thoughts are with the victims, their families, their loved ones. And let's be frank, this is not an isolated incident. There have been a series of anti-Semitic attacks, and I know firsthand the anxiety that is causing in the community and concern. I was at Kenton Synagogue last week where I heard a lot about that level of anxiety. It'll be worse after today. We're very much in touch with the community, and I'll visit as soon as possible.
This is yet another anti-Semitic attack in this country. You've said yourself that it's the first responsibility of government to ensure citizens' safety. Your critics will say you're not doing that. Well, I've just held a COBRA meeting, bringing together all the relevant partners, including the Home Secretary, the London Mayor, the Metropolitan Commissioner, to coordinate our response and to look at enhanced security. I've also spoken to CST. There is enhanced funding already in place. We need to increase that to give the level of protection that is needed. We need to take measures to deal with malign state actors, but we also have to be really clear that we need to get to the root causes of extremism and anti-Semitism, and so that is what we're doing. Kemi Badenoch says this is a national emergency. Nigel Farage says the Jewish community is in your thoughts and prayers, but with no action. What do you say to these criticisms?
Well, the government is taking action in relation to security, cohesion, extremism, but of course it's our responsibility to coordinate the immediate response here to this appalling attack, to ensure security is in place, to take other measures. I'm holding a meeting tomorrow with the criminal justice agencies to make sure that we can have effective and swift justice in these cases. But we do have to recognise the levels of anxiety and concern there are that I know about in terms of the Jewish community feeling very much exposed and vulnerable, feeling they've got to hide their identity, sometimes in the health service, sometimes at school, on the streets where they live. And it's our job to make sure that they feel safe and secure. It's our job to make sure that we absolutely deal with the roots of anti-Semitism and extremism. That is what we will do.
Well, the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, joins me on the sofa. Kemi, great to see you. Thank you very much for coming in. Very busy day.
Nice to see you, Cathy.
Come and sit down.
Thank you.
And you're actually the first political leader to sit on the sofa. So, and such a busy day. I really appreciate your time. Let's talk about the stabbing in Golders Green, because Israel says that anti-Semitism is out of control in the UK. Do you agree with that statement?
I do think this is a national emergency. I was in Golders Green just a couple of hours ago, and I cannot tell you how palpable the fear that people there have. They are scared. People saying that being visibly Jewish now is impossible. They're advising their family and their children, their friends, to not look Jewish so they don't get attacked. And it was also quite striking that they do believe that they have to protect themselves. The police were there, but it was the Shomrim, the volunteer security, who also got there, apprehended the assailants. They have their volunteer ambulances, the ones that got firebombed, Hatzola, treating the victims. So they're very worried, and I understand why. This is happening all over the country.
The Prime Minister says more funding is going in. Do you accept that efforts are being made to protect the Jewish community, or do you just think more needs to be done more urgently?
So I think this is a national emergency. This is not like 4 or 5 years ago where we could do the bare minimum. I'm sure the Prime Minister has put in more funding, but Shomrim have said they've never had any government funding at all. The Community Security Trust has. That's a different group. They saved lives today. Probably more people would have been hurt or killed if they hadn't got there. But we need to see an increased police presence in areas where there are many visibly Jewish people. We do need to see that. We do need to see more funding. People need to know that they can't do this and get away with it.
The local MP, who's also Justice Minister, Sarah Sackman, was heckled, as was the Metropolitan Police Commissioner. Do you think that was justified?
So temperatures are obviously running very high. I think when people are walking up and down a street every day, I was in Golders Green just before Passover, talking to people and them knowing that there are people trying to kill them, temperatures are going to run high. I'm mostly concerned about the victims, the people who were hurt. I spoke to the people who responded immediately to them. I spoke to the people who treated them. They said a centimetre or two, they stabbed in the neck, that these people would have been dead. So I'm not surprised that people are angry. Obviously, I don't condone abuse. I think it's sad that is happening. But the community was saying that they feel that they're being neglected, and I do agree that it's a national emergency.
And there's a feeling that they're not getting the solidarity. When they are under attack, there's not enough people condemning it. Why do you think that is the case?
It's worse than that. It's not just that people aren't condemning it. We have some people saying that this is all just a perception of a problem, that there's not a real problem.
You're referring to the Green leader,
I couldn't believe that he said that. This is real. And so if Jewish people are hearing party leaders saying that this is just a perception, it's not a reality.
He did say neither are acceptable, didn't he? He did go on to say that.
I don't think that's good enough. And what we're also seeing is more of a normalisation of rhetoric that promotes violence and intimidation towards Jews. And people make all sorts of comments which I don't think they would have got away with just a few years ago.
Well, we've kind of got into the politics. Let's talk about politics more broadly, because you were your usual punchy self in Prime Minister's questions today. You got a few laughs. But I've been looking at the polls. Now, when you became leader in November 2024, the Conservatives were polling 22%. It's now around 17%. I mean, it's not even flatlining, it's worse than that. And if you compare it to maybe the worst days of Ian Duncan Smith, who was seen as a catastrophe as leader, I mean, the lowest he got to was 27%. What has gone wrong?
So we're in a different era. The era of two-party politics, where two parties more or less split 100% of the vote, has gone. We now have multi-party politics. It's not just the Liberal Democrats, it's the Reform, it's the Greens. There's even a new party on the right called Restore that's coming up. I was in Scotland the other day. They got the SNP and Alba, Plaid Cymru. We're seeing a fragmentation in our political system.
So does that mean, frankly...
That's harming the established parties as new parties are gaining ground. But something else is going on, and that is that we had a historic defeat just a few years ago. The government is also having a very bad time after a short period, virtually no honeymoon, and all of this is impacting.
Yeah, but does it mean, frankly, that you are and irrelevance.
So what I am is a new leader of a new Conservative Party, and I'm not just changing the party, I'm also having more of an influence than any other party on the government. So many U-turns, social media, a U-turn, for example, family farms tax, a U-turn, winter fuel payment, a U-turn. We are the ones who are in Parliament day in, day out, stopping the government from doing things. They had this ridiculous pensions mandation. Many people wouldn't even have heard about it. We're doing the work.
Right.
If it wasn't for us, things would be even worse.
OK, so you're making an impact in terms of getting the government to change tax.
Yes, but that has an impact on people's lives.
Yeah, sure,
Children are safer. People have more money to heat their homes. But we are making a difference.
But are you making some of the wrong calls as leader? And is that part of the problem? Because, you tried to drag Keir Starmer in front of the Privileges Committee, and that was a political stunt, wasn't it, that went wrong? I mean, when you compare what he's accused of with what Boris Johnson was accused of, he misled Parliament, he broke the law, he was fined. I mean, the Mandelson saga doesn't compare, does it?
The Mandelson saga was a national security risk appointed to our most important diplomatic post. I do believe the Prime Minister misled Parliament. I put the evidence out there. Of course, Labour are going to call it a stunt. That's what they do about everything other opposition parties do and say.
But the Prime Minister isn't a liar like Boris Johnson was.
But I'm afraid the Prime Minister read out a false statement about what Sir Ollie Robbins had said.
It's semantics, though, isn't it?
Well, why are you making all these excuses for him,
Well,
Cathy?
I gave the Prime Minister a hard time earlier in the week.
I don't think that's right. I think that he sacked senior civil servants for doing what he had told them to do. He's destroying people's careers. And I think the worst part of yesterday is that he threatened his MPs with them losing their jobs unless he supported them.
OK, so you do think he's a liar, do you?
If he was so sure that he hadn't done anything wrong, then he should have allowed the investigation to exonerate him.
Is he a liar like Boris Johnson was?
The Prime Minister misled Parliament on multiple occasions, saying there was full due process, claiming that no pressure had been applied whatsoever, opposite of what...
You can't call him a liar. You'd call Boris Johnson a liar.
So I believe... don't put words in my mouth, Cathy. I believe that the Prime Minister did lie. I can't say that in Parliament. I can say that he misled. But at the end of the day, he appointed a security risk and the best friend of a convicted paedophile. This goes well beyond Epstein now.
Best friend might be a bit of a stretch. But
well,
yeah,
they called themselves, that's what they refer to each other as. And to a post that was so sensitive, he would have been seeing American intelligence.
Right.
I think that's wrong.
Well, let's talk about another call that you've made as leader, which has been criticised, which is the war in Iran. The Prime Minister was right, wasn't he, to be more cautious than you, given the military adventure hasn't gone very well, has it, for Trump?
So, as far as I'm concerned, if our troops are being attacked like they were, we should defend our bases. I stand by that.
You didn't say that, though, did you? You said you've got to do more than catch the arrows. What did you mean by that?
So, if our troops are being attacked and missiles are being thrown, I don't think it's enough just to block the missiles. People might disagree with that. I think you do need to stop the people who are doing that. If all you're trying to do, if you're being shot at, is catch the arrows, eventually you will get hit.
So that means
people might
move into offensive actions rather than defensive.
So I think that is still defensive. This is, as you were saying earlier, semantics. But I'm very clear. I've been clear from the beginning. He should have expressed verbal support when an enemy country like Iran is in a war with an allied country like the US. You should say whose side you're on. That's what the Canadians and the Australians did. They didn't join the airstrikes. But our Prime Minister sat on the fence. I think that's quite worrying.
But isn't that quite clever when you look at what Donald Trump said about Britain? He's calling question our sovereignty over the Falklands Islands.
Donald Trump's comments are wrong. All the comments that he's made about Britain and our military are wrong. But sticking your head in the sand like an ostrich does not make you a strategic military genius. Things could have gone either way. I do think that this war has not been prosecuted with a clear exit plan. That's something that I would like the Prime Minister to be asking for. But until then, let him focus on what he can do here.
Okay.
If we're going to have an issue with fuel supplies, let's drill our own oil and gas in the North Sea. That's our policy. This belief that we can just leave oil and gas and the tax revenue you get from it under the sea while we're importing from Norway, who are drilling in the same basin, just doesn't make any sense.
You'll know that the government's argument is that that wouldn't make an immediate difference. But
they're wrong. I can explain why, but fundamentally disagree. Yes.
Let's come back to Prime Minister questions, because you talked about the ballooning benefits bill there. If that's the case, why won't you even have a conversation about ditching the triple lock on pensions?
Because when we came into government in 2010, and this is long before I got there, but when Conservatives came in, pensioner poverty was a real thing.
£12,500 as a state pension is not that much money at a time when so many people who can work are on welfare. That's where we need to start. If you get people off welfare, it's a double whammy.
Although
you stop paying them,
32%...
welfare, and they pay taxes as well.
But 32% of people claiming universal credit are in work. I mean,
yes,
there's
but
a lot of working
very
poverty,
few hours. They're working very few hours. They're not working 30 hours or 40 hours. Some are working 4 hours. It's not quite the same
Maybe
thing.
They can't get the work. But...
So I think that our benefit system is out of control because we are paying more in welfare than we get in income tax. The rider is now heavier than the horse. That's not right.
But you won't even have a conversation about ditching the triple lock. So
the triple lock is not the problem. Growth is the problem. If we were growing, we wouldn't even be having a conversation about the triple lock.
Yes. But come the next election, will you have a conversation about ditching the triple lock? Is that a possibility?
The triple lock is Conservative policy. I stand by that.
Okay.
Changing the triple lock is redistributing money that's there. I'm saying we need to grow our economy. We need to create more value, create more wealth. That means letting business do that rather than putting more burdens on them and then hoping that a government scheme will fix everything. That's not the way.
I wanted to read a policy statement to you, and it is this. I now believe there's one big divide in British society, those that work and those that don't. Do you agree with that?
I do think that is what is happening now, that we're turning into a divided society where there are some people who can work, who don't work, and a smaller and smaller group of people are having to carry the burden.
And do you know who said that?
I don't know who said that. It's a simple statement. It doesn't matter who said it. I'm telling you what I think.
No, but it matters to me who said it because it was Nigel Farage.
It does.
I'm just making the point that, you agree with that statement, and there's quite a lot you agree with the Reform leader about, whether it's defence spending, immigration, European policy, that's another one, welfare. Actually, and I just wonder why, if you can't beat them, why don't you join them?
Why on earth would I do that? They are not really a party of the right. He said just this morning, he was on TV saying that what he really wants to, on Radio 4, saying what he really wants to do is increase benefits, but the media and other people are criticising him too much. That's not serious. Nigel Farage will say some things that are correct, some of the time. It's about whether the thing is right or wrong. That's what I'm about. It's not about whether it's left or right. It's about whether it is right or wrong. I do think it is right that too many people are out of work who can work. Every day I'm out and about in the country, people are telling me about people they know who are getting away with not working when they should be working.
So if you sort of despise Nigel Farage, it sounds like, from what you're saying. So
why would you think that?
Well, no, you were quite rude about him. You said he wasn't serious. Okay.
Yeah, that's not there's a big difference between saying someone is not serious and someone is despised.
Enough. You don't get along with him. So
he's another party leader. That's the normal thing. We don't all sit around singing Kumbaya. We're in different parties for different reasons.
But would you rule out here, at the next election, any kind of merger or tie-ups?
Yes, I can easily rule that out.
And propping up a minority-led reform government?
The Conservative Party has been around for 200 years. We are a heritage institution. I'm a custodian of the Conservative Party. Yes, I know mistakes were made in the past. I'm not here to defend the last government. What I'm saying is that we're a new party under new leadership. I was not elected to go have a merger with Nigel Farage, who is already having loads of problems of his own. Today, we're hearing that somebody gave him £5 million that he didn't declare. I think that's serious. The last leader of reform in Wales is in prison for taking bribes from Russia.
He's not here to answer any of those.
Yes, but we're not merging with that. No, thank you.
He's not there to answer any of those. But, would you rule out also, you've ruled out a merger or a tie-up, would you also rule out propping up a minority-led reform government led by Nigel Farage?
Yes, I'm very happy to do that. This is not... If people want Conservative policies, they need to vote Conservative. There are too many candidates in reform who I don't trust. There are a lot of people who cause problems in the Conservative Party. There's so many of them, but yes, he is one of them. And they've gone to reform. Why would I then take this new Conservative Party, which I'm building, and merge it with the problems? Right. Nigel Farage has been doing my spring cleaning. He can have those problems now. They're his problems now, not mine.
One final question. I asked the Prime Minister about his wife, Vic, because she once said that she thought he was mad to get into politics. So I want to ask about your husband, Hamish. I know he was political himself, but does he ever worry about your political career, given how much abuse women in politics, and particularly women of colour, get?
He does worry. He worries about just the general state of politics and what we have to go through. He's constantly telling me, I don't know how you do it. But it is, it's a joint effort. We're a team. I would not be sitting in this chair without the support of Hamish. He is an amazing man. He is the best partner that any woman could ever ask for. He earns more of the money, yet he does most of the housework, looks after the children. It's
he's a god.
I'm very lucky. I'm good. There's going to be a lot of payback on my side, but it's because of him that I'm able to do this. Because most political careers end up meaning that you have to make a sacrifice, or really your family makes a sacrifice. They don't see you as much, and they have to see all the mean things that people say about you, because any politician, doesn't matter what party you're in, you will have more criticism than you will have praise. It's just the nature of the job, and that is quite tough on families. So I'm very grateful for mine.
Well, Kemi Badenoch, I'm very grateful that you have been the first political leader to sit on our sofa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cathy.
Well, today's attack is sure to feature heavily on our late-night programme, The Wrap, tonight at 10 p.m. Journalist and broadcaster Jenny Kleeman and political commentator Adam Bolton will be here to discuss all the day's big stories and the best of tomorrow's papers. We'll also be joined a bit later by Sarah Sackman, the MP for Golders Green, who we saw in Lisa's report a bit earlier, and Labour peer Luciana Berger will be with us as well. Well, Thangam and Gillian are on the sofa tonight, as is our chief political correspondent, Jon Craig. Jon, we'll come to the sort of broader political discussion and Kemi Badenoch and so on, but I just want to talk about the Golders Green attack first. Jon, just sum up where we are. The Prime Minister's chaired Cobra. What's emerged in the last hour or so?
Well, the key things the Prime Minister said following the Cobra meeting were, first of all, he said, he talked about enhanced security. He said, there is enhanced funding already in place, but he said we need to increase the funding for security to give the level of protection that's needed. And he also talked about taking measures to deal with malign state actors. But he seems to be promising more cash, more resources. The other thing he said, when he actually rejected, it was put to him what Kemi Badenoch had said about a national emergency. He said that he's tomorrow going to have a meeting with the criminal justice agencies to make sure we can have effective and swift justice in these cases. That reminds me, do you remember when the riots happened after Southport? I remember he brought all the police and the CPS and various Crown Prosecution Service and others try and speed up justice. Well, good luck with that. I mean, given the problem with the backlog in the courts.
I was just looking, there's just been a bill today, received royal assent, which protects synagogues more. So I wonder whether some of those measures are going to be rushed through. I might ask the Justice Minister, but I wonder what you've heard about that.
Well, if they weren't, they probably will be now. Because clearly the government's taken this very seriously, as is Kemi Badenoch. I mean, the cast list for that Cobra meeting, not just Mark Rowley, but Lawrence Taylor. He was the senior police officer. He's an assistant commissioner who announced that it's now being treated as a terrorist incident. As you imagine, the Mayor of London, Dan Jarvis, the Security Minister, Home Secretary, Ed Miliband, and Miatta Fahnbulleh, who is got this title of Faith and Communities Minister. So quite a bit, and it was pretty hastily convened Cobra meeting. Normally, quite often we get a day or two's notice. You'll know, you must have attended Cobra.
On this subject.
And but this was a pretty hastily convened one. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the PM and the Home Secretary perhaps visiting Golders Green at some point. Kemi Badenoch and Chris Philp were pretty swift to get up there. I was really struck by the hostile reception the local MP, Sarah
Sackman. We're going to speak to her in a second.
I mean, that was really hostile.
Yeah, really interesting. And, you know, it must have been very alarming. Gillian, you heard the Tory leader there talking about an epidemic of violence against Jews. Would you say British Jews just aren't safe?
They don't feel safe, and they haven't since October the 7th. We had all of those same Cobra meetings then. You cannot say anti-Semitism is unacceptable and then accept it. So we were doing lots of things with universities. There's lots of communities where this hate has become unacceptable. You had, you know, marchers on the street saying all kinds of things which were deeply offensive and also calling for violence. You've got the Iranian embassy in London now saying things which could be interpreted as a call for violence. The FCDO should be getting the ambassador in and making them hold the accounts of foreign
So you don't think there's enough being done by the government?
No, you have to really show action very quickly. The words have been going on now for years. And we did, we tried to ban hate marches. I remember us rowing with some of those same people there saying, you need to do more. The police have powers. Make sure you use them. So I do think that the action has to be really visible to that community that have felt so vulnerable now for so long in this country, which is so upsetting to everybody.
And Thangam, the rot really started under the previous Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, didn't it, in this country? This isn't, it's a homegrown problem. Is the current leader doing enough?
I think the roots of anti-Semitism, which Keir mentioned, I think we need to own the fact that they come from the sort of attitudes which display themselves when people criticise the government of Israel, the actions of the government of Israel, but instead of saying they're talking about the government of Israel, they talk about Israel or Israelis, and sometimes, I'm afraid to say, openly attacking Jews for the actions of the government of Israel. And I think the October the 7th, which I think you've mentioned, it doesn't just go back there. Anti-Semitism goes back centuries, but we have seen in the last century what happens when anti-Semitism is unchecked.
Yeah,
and that is the fear.
Keir Starmer got a lot of praise for rooting out anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, but has he done enough to root it out in the country?
Well, demonstrably, we still have anti-Semitism. And I think people are afraid. I know people are afraid, Jewish friends of mine who are afraid. And I think the challenge here is actually on those of us who are not Jewish to make sure we are not standing back when we should be moving forward, to make sure we are picking people up when they say things that, even if they think they're not being anti-Semitic, they are allowing that atmosphere of hate to prevail.
It's interesting because the Metropolitan Police Commissioner drew attention to that, didn't he, today in Golders Green, saying, there's a failure to condemn and we've got to ask ourselves why that is. We've all got to ask ourselves questions, haven't we, Jill?
Well, I've been Kemi was very, fluent in knowing who to condemn and who to stick up for. I've been very clear on that from the beginning as well. But some people are not. I mean, I could say some political leaders are, let's say more nuanced or even leaning towards, making this situation worse with some of their words. So we all have to be very careful, but we do have to call it out. The hate marches, we have to call it out.
Kemi Badenoch was talking about the Green Party leader, Zach Polansky, who said he's called for a debate on, and I quote, whether it's a perception of unsafety or whether it's actual unsafety. He did go on to emphasise that neither were acceptable, but that was an interesting moment, wasn't it, Thangam? I mean, you were defeated by the Greens, so I know you've got skin in the game here.
It's outrageous that people are making sort of false equivalences that actually come out, in my view, out of anti-Semitic beliefs. After October the 7th, I cannot tell you the number of times I had people saying to me, either it was made up, it never happened, it wasn't that bad, or it was justified. Every single one of those things is anti-Semitic. Every single one. Every time we have to, if we hear those things, we, especially non-Jews, have to be standing up to that and making clear to people that this is not acceptable, because that sort of hatred is the midwife of the sort of anti-Semitism that leads to the sort of crimes and danger and fear that Jews genuinely feel. That is not OK. I don't want to live in a country where Jews don't feel safe.
Yes.
Some of Labour's opponents may say, and critics like some in the Jewish community and the Israeli government, perhaps the Labour government might be doing more if it wasn't so concerned about the threat from political opponents like the Greens and like the Independents, all the pro-Gaza candidates we're seeing in both, we saw at the general election, Independents winning their seats, Greens winning seats, and now in these local elections where the pro-Gaza parties are a threat to Labour.
I can't speak for strategists. All I can tell you is that the moment came in the general election 2024 when a woman said something to me in the general election campaign in Bristol Central that was so anti-Semitic that I said to her, please do not vote for me. Do not vote for me. And she said, what if you lose? I said, I'd rather lose than take your vote. Now, you may say that was idiotic of me. And I did lose by 10,000 votes. And they were not all anti-Semites. I just want to be absolutely clear. People have a right to exercise their democratic choice in an election. What they do not have the right to do is to fail to understand that when you make anti-Semitic comments, when you say things about the state of Israel that you never say about any other state, when you talk about protecting Muslims and you never mention Sudan or Yemen or any one of a number of places where millions of Muslims have been slaughtered, when you take one set of standards and you apply them only to one state, you have to understand that the consequences of that is people think it's OK to shout and scream and abuse and harass Jews on the streets of London. On the streets of London.
And that's what we've seen, and it's escalating. And how you can have the Iranian embassy in London also issuing statements which are open to being misunderstood, let's say. I'm being generous now. Maybe they are deliberate. So these have to be, and this is why possibly they're getting booed now, because, this has been going on for years and it's escalating. Everything that happened today can happen tomorrow and could be more fatal and could happen to anyone. And that's why people are frightened. Once you get it so normalised that it could happen, it could be your kid, it could be you walking down the street, then you are fearful. And people will look and think, are they safe in this country? And I'm afraid many Jewish people are concluding no.
And I think every non-Jew that has been on a march where there has been hate, even if they did not say it themselves, everybody needs to get themselves educated about where the consequences of anti-Semitism go.
Yeah. Great to have your very impassioned thoughts and much more to discuss. Well, let's talk about Labour now, because we've found out today that Keir Starmer's inner team is split over whether the Prime Minister should carry out a reshuffle after next week's local elections. Our political editor, Beth Rigby, has been picking up divisions over how to handle the aftermath, which comes after a testing time for the PM over the Peter Mandelson affair.
Could Angela Rayner be back in government just days after those local elections? Because less than 2 weeks ago, it looked like a cabinet reshuffle was nailed on and Angela Rayner could be back. But the Mandelson crisis has put the cat amongst the pigeons in more ways than one. Because now Keir Starmer's top team's divided over whether a cabinet reshuffle after the elections is A, a good idea, or B, even possible given the political predicament he's in. So what on earth is actually going on behind the scenes? On the one hand, you've got the Prime Minister's chief whip, Jonathan Reynolds, and his political director, Amy Richards, pushing for a reshuffle of the top team because they want to put some of the soft left in Labour back into the top team. Think of your Lou Haigs, your Angela Rayners, your Lucy Powells. And why do they want to do that? Well, they want to placate some of those Labour MPs who are casting around for a different sort of leader to Keir Starmer that comes from the left. It is, of course, a one-in, one-out system, and the talk around Westminster is that the potential casualties to any reshuffle will be those on the right of the Labour Party. Think of these two, Liz Kendall and Peter Kyle. And on the other side of the split, arguing against a reshuffle at the top of number 10, you've got Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, and his acting Chief of Staff, Vidya Alaxon. They're trying to press pause on any reshuffle, and you can see why. It's such a febrile time, and the Prime Minister's in such a perilous position. Kemi Badenoch summed it all up at Prime Minister's questions.
He's lost a Deputy Prime Minister, 2 Chiefs of Staff, 2 Cabinet Secretaries, the support of his backbenchers and all his credibility. The fact is the Prime Minister was reduced to whipping his MPs to save him and pleading with a tax dodger to rejoin his Cabinet. How much longer do we all have to put up with his shambles?
And beyond the current woes, Labour could be facing decimation in the May elections. Some polling suggests they could lose up to 2,000 council seats in England. If that happens, it will be clearly earth-shattering for Labour, and it's really unclear what the fallout will be. And as for Keir Starmer, well, he looked like he just wanted Prime Minister's questions and this parliamentary session to be over.
I changed my party and I won a general election. More rights at work, more security for renters, lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. That's our mandate, that's our mission, and nothing's going to hold us back.
But that's not really in his control, and while the Prime Minister weighs up whether to reshuffle his top team, his wider party are weighing up whether to reshuffle him.
I'm in Portcullis House, the heart of Parliament. So usually a lot of gossiping takes place here. But I'd say now, because of these big elections next week, there's a mood of fear and loathing amongst Labour MPs. They don't know what they're going to come back to now this parliamentary term is drawing to a close. So perhaps there's going to be a cabinet reshuffle. Perhaps Sir Keir Starmer will have to step down. There'll be a leadership challenge. Kemi Badenoch could be under pressure too. So the only people really feeling good at the moment are Reform and the Greens. Well, let's go to the sofa with Thangam and Gillian. Let's start with you, Thangam, on Labour's prospects, because you heard Beth there talking about, cabinet reshuffle and all of that, and how Keir comes back from what are inevitably going to be terrible elections next week. What's your view on how does he sack Rachel Reeves? What happens?
To be honest, Cathy, I was barely concentrating on what Beth said because it felt so speculation-y to me. It's just, I was sorry, I was intrigued at the lovely, lovely shot of you in PCH, but no, I didn't pay much attention. And it's partly because reshuffle talk is just that. It's reshuffle talk.
Right, okay, but you've very elegantly dodged the question by pretending to be daffier than
Professional
you are.
at this.
But Keir Starmer, how much trouble is he in? Are we looking at potentially the final days of his premiership?
We're looking at some heavy losses next week for both my party and Gillian's. There's just no getting away from that. I mean, Kemi didn't
what does
duck
that mean
it.
for the leadership?
I think we've got to take the successes that we've got. I think Keir was very punchy today on PMQs, and he listed things like the Renters' Rights Act, which was promised by Gillian's party for years, never happened.
It's a bad idea.
It's come in this time. You were going to do it, and yet you were going to do it. We are ending no-fault evictions, which is a good idea. The workers' rights.
It is.
Yeah,
that's the bit. It is. But the rest
she can be so honest now.
Football Governance Act, which gives fans more rights. We have done things on workers' rights. We've created
this is like the PMQ.
Great British Rail. There are loads of good things.
Clubs.
Loads of good things to talk about.
But the point is,
why not
he's
going to
live. He's going to live to die another day, and he's going to live to die in another way. But he's not going to live.
But why? He's not going to live. That was great. That was so poetic.
Yeah,
it's true, isn't it?
Deep.
But it's true.
We have got to
answer the question
as we go into the elections. I am going to talk about Labour's great achievements. I'm really proud of them.
You literally need a post-it note, or even less.
Oh my God. Do you want me to list all 52? Because I can.
Well,
no, let's talk about right now. Let's
the
talk about right now.
unemployment bill. We've got the unemployment.
Gillian,
lots of them.
it's time for you to answer the question.
Yes.
You saw the interview with Kemi Badenoch.
Yeah.
I mean, she's very punchy. She's very witty, isn't she?
She is.
But it's not translating into poll success, is it?
Well, it's getting there. I mean, as she
No,
said,
it's not getting there.
Well,
Sorry.
we had a historic defeat. Her personal poll ratings are. Actually, she's the most popular leader.
Sure.
And that is actually, to say where she started, it is a low bar. But to say where she started, where she started, she's the most popular.
Gillian, you were taking the mickey out of Thangam there for not answering the question.
She'll be more popular after that. After your interview, she'll be more popular. I will even go so far as to say that.
Gillian, wait, I've got to put these poll numbers to you. Right?
Yes.
The poll rate is 19% now against 27% in the days of Ian Duncan Smith.
I mean, as she said, we were two parties sharing the polls. Now we're all. So if you look at the polls, basically there's 5 parties plus or minus 4 or 5% around 20.
Yeah, but that leaves you in an existential
It doesn't.
event,
It means we've got to see off reform if he doesn't see himself off, not merge with them at all. She was very clear on that, and she's completely right. We need to be better than them. We are obviously we will.
So
see them
you think?
No, I think they'll merge in the end.
I'm
pretty
we'll see them
sure.
off.
The maths
you
says
say
yes.
that now. The maths says yes.
Look, it's a one-man band, and we're a 200-year-old party that's governed the country more than anybody else. They do not fit. He's a populist, and he'll say anything to get elected. We know if we get elected, we'll have to do the job, and we'll have to do the job sensibly and seriously. So we're completely different where we start. We're completely different. And Kemi, I know her well. She came in with me. I mean, obviously, I'm not there anymore. You know, she's the real deal. She's clear thinking, and she's brave enough to say it.
Right. But she was also part of the very government which she's now saying
I was part of that government.
I know. I was being
I was part of that government. Well, I would defend it more.
Kemi has dissed it.
I was the education secretary.
Ladies, that you were both part of.
We're having far too much of a good time on the sofa. We've got more serious things to discuss right now than who survives in the party leader. So let's pause for a second. And we are going to return now to that anti-Semitic attack in Golders Green, which has been declared a terror incident. Joining me now is the MP for Finchley and Golders Green and the Justice Minister, Sarah Sackman. Sarah Sackman, it's been a very harrowing day in your constituency, and you know, you had to absorb a lot of the anger there. How did that feel?
Well, Cathy, it has been an appalling day, incredibly sad. My thoughts are with the victims of these horrific attacks. The fact that it's been declared a terror incident, I think, says it all, because this latest violent attack coming hot on the heels of the arson that we saw just down the road on the volunteer ambulances, the attempted arson at local synagogues has spread fear and terror into what is otherwise a very peaceful and cohesive part of North London.
I mean, I can hear the toll it's taken on you just in the how you're speaking now. You're Jewish yourself, do you feel safe now?
Well, you're right. I'm not just a very proud local MP for our area. I'm a member of the Jewish community. And I was saying to somebody earlier that when I take my children to Hebrew school on a Sunday in my constituency, I'm holding their hand a little tighter. I know that many parents are doing the same.
And so, do you think that the government is responsible, in part at least, for the fact that you and other British Jews feel so unsafe at the moment?
The people who are responsible are the vile individuals who have perpetrated these attacks. And let's be absolutely clear, we're talking about British Jews, but this attack on British Jews is an attack on Britain. And the responsibility for this lies on the evil perpetrators of it. Government, of course, has a responsibility to ensure that every community feels safe. And I would say
it's not meeting that responsibility at the moment, is it? That's the point. I mean, Keir Starmer has been praised for what he's done rooting out anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. But does he now need to apply the same rigour in the country at large?
Well, we heard, and I spoke to the Prime Minister earlier, as well as the Home Secretary, he called a Cobra meeting. That speaks to the urgency and the importance that he is attributing to what we've seen today. I want to praise the police. I want to praise the volunteer Shomrim, who apprehended the attacker and prevented even worse harm. And I say that not just to praise them, but the fact that the police were so close on the scene is part of the uplift in policing that we've seen in our area. And we're going to need to see more of that because of the increased threat. The government has committed £28 million to local security as well as additional policing. It has passed new laws to clamp down on hate speech on marches, and as well as, education programs in our schools. But we are in this for the long haul. And one thing I'd say to your viewers, government has a huge responsibility, but the responsibility for tackling this doesn't lie just with government, and it certainly doesn't lie just on the shoulders of the Jewish community. This is a societal problem. I know that our allies are everywhere, but now is the time to speak up and stand with the British Jewish community.
Do you go about your life now sort of looking over your shoulder, really, on alert, constantly worrying, whether you yourself are going to come under attack?
I think that I'm not alone in saying that many Jewish people feel that additional threat. For decades now, many people may not realise that Jewish schools, Jewish places of worship, Jewish community centres have always had security, and that's because it's been needed. That threat has only intensified in recent times, and we have to be vigilant. But I'll also say this: British Jews in this country do not want to live behind ever higher walls. I know that allies are everywhere because my phone today has been full of messages from local priests, imams, community leaders, all wanting to extend their solidarity with the British Jewish community. We are a tolerant country. The moderate majority in this country, I know, stands with our British Jewish community. But I cannot pretend that this is anything other than shocking, and we need to root it out.
And you mentioned earlier about the resources that government will have to dedicate to keeping the community safe. Is it really whatever it takes now? Because clearly this should have happened before time. Is it now a matter of urgency to get those resources in place?
Well, as I said, I've spoken to the Prime Minister, and I think that he is very clear and resolute that permanent resourcing for additional policing will be needed. But we also need to be really honest here. The culture of hatred which allows this form of racism and intolerance and violence to fester also needs to be addressed. Some of the activity here we know has state backers. There are Iranian links with some of these attacks. Some of this is homegrown radicalization. We need to address this in all its forms. It's not just about law enforcement, although that is incredibly important, but some of the cultural aspects and some of the aspects of ambient anti-Semitism, which has been allowed to take hold in some of our newspapers, in our workplaces. Whoever allowed for Kanye West and booked Kanye West, a well-known anti-Semite, to play at a popular music festival just shows how normalised some of this has become. And we need to address this.
And just finally, a bill achieved royal assent today to put in extra measures around synagogues. Will you now be rushing those measures out so they come into force quicker than expected?
Well, I think we need all the tools in our armoury to address this. And part of that, as I've said, is legislation. Part of it is money. But this has to be a whole society issue, because what starts with Britain's Jews does not end there. And I know that the moderate majority of this country stands with Britain's Jews, but now is the time to stand up and be counted.
Sarah Sackman, thank you very much for your time on this very busy and very distressing day for you and your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Thangam and Gillian are still on the sofa, and they're joined now by the Labour peer, Luciana Berger. Luciana, your response to this terrible attack in Golders Green today?
Well, it's horrific. And I sit before you not just as a Member of Parliament and a member of the House of Lords, but also as a mother to two Jewish children who go to a Jewish primary school that already has more security guards on the door as they go into school, that already now has a guard dog on the door as they go into school, and now has permanent folders to ensure that, or to prevent anti-car ramming. That's the experience of my family and my children every day. That was before, obviously, the events today. And we have now seen over the course of the past 8 months, but the past few weeks in particular, an escalation in the number of anti-Jewish hate crimes in this country. This one, obviously, today, particularly shocking. And I'm obviously very disturbed having seen the footage of what's happened today. We need action.
I mean, what action do you want immediately and with urgency?
Well, there has been a lot of measures that have been brought forward. I would echo what you just heard from Sarah Sackman in terms of, I'm so grateful to the police and for their response. We've also got volunteer groups that have made a tangible difference to today, probably to prevent loss of life, which, for which I'm very, very grateful. We've got higher walls, we've got more CCTV, or it's coming if it's not already in place. That deals with the symptoms. And absolutely, right now we need to do that urgently. I note that there's already a petition that's online calling a parliamentary petition that's got up thousands of signatures just in the last hour or so, calling for protection, 24-hour protection around Jewish sites and Jewish community. But that doesn't solve the problem. Doesn't speak to the root of the problem. Certainly, and we've had some very, very significant words today. The action we need to really look at is things in terms of radicalisation. Certainly radicalisation online that we know is making a difference. We know that there is a significant issue of hate preaching in this country that isn't being tackled, that we need to look at. We need to look at both the domestic threats and also there's a suggestion today, as we've seen from the arson attacks over the past few weeks, that there are foreign forces that are seeking to perpetrate these crimes. We need to look both domestically and internationally as well.
I mean, you left the Labour Party because of anti-Semitism that had festered under Jeremy Corbyn. How much do you blame him and the left more broadly for stoking this vile racism?
Well, certainly it gave me no pleasure to know that under the leadership of the former leader of the Labour Party, that the Labour Party was guilty of harassing and intimidating its Jewish members after the inquiry from the Equality and Human Rights Commission. And it's absolutely right that Keir Starmer has done everything to root out that problem from within the Labour Party. And the Labour Party today is not the Labour Party that I left. But, certainly just in the last week alone, we've heard comments from the leader of the Green Party that talked about how it was the perceived experience of the Jewish community when it came and the perception of anti-Semitism. I'd urge him to look at what's happened today and say very clearly that that's not perception, that's reality. That is what the Jewish community right across this country is contending with, and it's both very angry today and very fearful.
Because you're looking over your shoulder the whole time, are you? I asked Sarah as well.
Absolutely. And particularly in terms of going to any sort of Jewish event, to go to a synagogue, a Jewish place of worship, we have that security. We can't announce in advance where our events, where even our family events are going to take place if it's a Jewish event. That's the reality for Jews in this country today.
Thangam, it must be very hard, as a Labour colleague of both the women we've just heard from, Luciana and Sarah. It must be hard to hear what you've just heard.
Yes. And it's been hard watching what Luciana's had to tolerate. As Luciana said, it was upsetting to watch my own party behave the way it did. And I am glad, and I agree with Luciana, that Keir made that a priority. And I think that he has worked and he continues to do that. But that's not taking away from what we're talking about here, which is anti-Semitism and the anti-Semitic comments, anti-Semitic thoughts that come out in words, that come out in placards, that come out in slogans, have consequences. These are the consequences. And it's distressing to see the suffering of my friends and colleagues, and it's extremely distressing to think about the consequences of anti-Semitism running around the United Kingdom.
Gillian, your thought?
Clear actions now need to happen on a number of fronts. So not just more meetings, not just another process, not just another review, and not just warm words. And
Do you think there is an issue there that, the Prime Minister's been accused of sort of, saying the right thing, but is he doing the right thing?
I think there's been a real focus on that security, and certainly the Prime Minister has been has repeated on many occasions how he is committed to ensuring the safety of the Jewish community. The problem is that no matter how high those walls are and how many security guards, you can't prevent every incident, and that's why I think the focus now really has to be on tackling the causes.
And, I think it's really important that we're not leaving this to Jewish people. This is not a Jewish people's problem to fix. It's something that's been done to Jewish people. It's on all of us who are not Jewish, not just to condemn, not just to say we have thoughts and prayers, but actually also to be calling for the increased security and calling out anti-Semitism and challenging anti-Semitism, even if we feel it's uncomfortable.
And look where the pockets are. You can go on now on Twitter, the Chief Rabbi's statement, look underneath it. Go and look in universities. I have. Go and look in universities, look at some of the bad behaviour there. Deal with it. You can now look at the Iranian embassy and whatever they are trying to get people to do, deal with it. We now need these actions.
Just a final word from you. Are some British Jews talking about leaving the country?
Well, this has been discussed about in the press, and certainly I had a friend today tell me that she's so worried about her child at a Jewish school. She wants to remove her child from the Jewish school because she's worried about what might happen at that site. So there's lots of concerns amongst the Jewish community. Ultimately, this should be a place where everyone from any community can feel safe, and that should be the focus.
Indeed. Luciana, Thangam, Gillian, thank you all so much for joining me. A very sad day, but thank you very much for sharing that. That is all we've got time for, but I'm going to leave you with a piece of history recovered after scholars from Trinity College Dublin uncovered a lost copy of a 7th century poem, the earliest surviving one in the English language. Here it is. It's called Cadman's Hymn, and it's a paean to the work of God and the wonders of his heavenly kingdom. We'll see you all on the heavenly sofa tomorrow at 7.